Our chosen topic is Greek architecture. Its architecture was extinct about 600 BC to 1st century BC. The reason why we choose Greek architecture is because Greek architects provide some of the finest and most distinctive buildings in the entire ancient world, and it became staple features of towns and cities from antiquity onwards. Its architectural style was greatly influenced human from Roman to the present days. In this presentation, there are three topics, which are the purpose of the building, Greek classical order, building materials, and construction details. Now, I will talk about the purpose of building in Greek architecture. Purpose of building. Buildings of Greek were built to honor the gods. Architecture of ancient Greek life was dominated by religion, and so it is not surprising that the temples of ancient were the biggest and most beautiful. They also had a political purpose, as they were often built to celebrate civil power and pride, or to offer thanksgiving to the patronage of a city for success in war. Basically, the Greek buildings are honored outside but plain inside. Temple. Temple is the essential building to worship the gods, but not the place for the people to live. Ceremony was celebrated at outside of the temple, in front of the porticos. The majority of the religious buildings were concentrated in the Acropolis, or forty city built on a mountain near the city. Greek temples, not only functional structure, but also the building itself as a whole, was symbolic and an important element in the civic landscape. Theatre. Main purpose of theatre was used to meeting and dramatic performance. It consisted of several parts: skin, which is the place for the performance, the orchestra, and the storage room. The seats in the orchestra were divided in areas to make it possible movement. Next, I will talk about the Greek classical orders. For the style of column in Greek, they developed three architectural systems called the orders, each with their own distinctive proportion and detailing. The Greek orders consist of Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns. This is the part of the column. The top of the column is known as the capital, and the body of the column is known as the shaft, and this is the base, which have in Ionic and Corinthian order. The first order is known as the Doric order. The Doric style is the oldest, simplest, and most massive of the three orders. The capital is plain and made of a circle tailed by a square. The shape of the Doric style column is ornamented with 20 roots and is wider at the bottom. It was originally placed directly on the ground without a pedestal or base. Basically, a Doric column is much plainer than the later Ionic and Corinthian column styles. Ancient buildings often use them for the lowest level of multi-story buildings. This style of column used in mainland Greece and the colonies in southern Italy. One of the most famous buildings that using Doric style was Parthenon in Athens. It is the most famous historical building. Next is the Ionic order. Ionic style column is thinner and more elegant. Its capital is decorated with a scroll-like design, which make it more decorative than Doric. Ionic shape was taller than Doric orders. This makes the column look slender. The shape also had a special characteristic, anthesis. This makes the column look straight even at a distance, even though the columns are wider at the bottom. They also have fruit, which are lined curved into them from top to bottom. This Ionic style was found in Eastern Greece and the island. Examples of Ionic order column building are the Temple of Athena in Acropolis, one of the most famous buildings in the world. Last but not least is the Corinthian order. Corinthian style is the most honored of the classical order in architecture. This style is seldom used in Greek, but can often seen on Roman temples. Its capital is rarely elaborate and decorated with an acanthus leaf. The shape has fruit and the base is like the Ionic order. Its shape also uses anthesis to make it look straight. Unlike the Doric and Ionic cornices, which are at slant, the Corinthian roofs are flat. One of the example buildings that use this Corinthian style is Temple of Zeus, which is located in Athens.
And I'll talk about the building materials and the construction details of Greek architecture. Materials. The ancient Greek had influenced the architecture of other civilizations and periods, especially through the use of ornamental columns in marble. The buildings of the United States Supreme Court and the General Post Office of New York are examples of influence. At about 900 BC, the principal materials of Greek architecture were clay, timber, and mud brick with thatched roofs. Later on, with the development of new techniques of cut stone, marble, and limestone become the predominant building materials. For the material of timber, they are used for columns, walls, and upper portion of the temple and other buildings of Greek architecture. During this period, temples were first built in a horseshoe shape. Later, evolving into the rectangular shape, columns were used only for support, not yet as decorations. The gradual substitution of stone columns for wooden one begins in about 620 BC. That applies both to newly built temples and to the replacement of decaying wooden columns in existing buildings. For example, the temple to Hera at Olympia began famous of its long process of change. One of the original oak columns is seen still in place in an otherwise stone building by a visitor in 2nd century AD. For another material in Greek architecture, terracotta, called as max clay, was extensively employed for roof tiles and other architectural ornaments, as has been shown by many recent discoveries, especially at Olympia. In Hieronymus, there have the oldest example of terracotta roof. A 6th century temple at Thermopylae, Arcadia is also constructed of wood, terracotta, with painted terracotta slabs in wooden frames for metopes. On the other hand, metals, especially bronze, used for decorative details. Greek architects of classical periods used these materials to develop a limited range of building types, each of which served as a fixed purpose: religious, civic, domestic, funeral, or recreational. Metal workers were employed to make the metal fittings used for reinforcing the stone blocks and to fashion the necessary bronze accoutrements for sculpted scenes on the frieze, metops, and pediments. Meanwhile, marble is a metamorphic rock. A compacted form of limestone was not only used until the 5th century of BC. First used in Greece in sculptures of gods and goddesses. The coarse stonework of crude bricks were used. A coating composed of marble dust and lime rock and highly polished was applied to masonry with exact joints cut. Although it was long thought that buildings in ancient Greece retained the unbroken white of marble, in fact, colors and gilding were customarily applied to emphasize decorative sculpture and certain details. Remaining traces of this have been found, having discovered in the simple column and lintel an adequate method of construction. They use it exclusively, drawing from it the maximum of dignity and beauty. Roofs of ancient Greek temples and cathedrals still standing today are often made of marble, a stone known for its durability. For the material of limestone, they were used sparingly in relief slabs of temples as early as 1250 BC. As in the case of the Lion Gate of Messene, the Greeks began to use the stone more intensively in 600 BC. Limestone were easy to carve and offered endless possibilities of decoration due to its softness. In this period, limestone usually used as columns, which carved of local stone, and started to have specific design, becoming decorative pieces, especially in temples. However, due to the fragility of limestone, some architects prefer to use marbles. Besides, Greek art and sculpture has had a profound effect throughout the ages. Many of the styles have been reproduced and copied by some of what modern-day audience would class as some the finest artists who have ever lived. For example, Michelangelo. Sculpture from Greek mainland and abroad carved freestanding and relief sculpture for the eve of temple building. Painters were engaged to decorate sculpture and architectural elements with painted details.